Welcome back, everybody. It's January 31st, 2025, and we are ready for another deep dive.
That's right. Another deep dive into the news, but through that philosophical lens.
You got it. So to set the stage,
Okay.
we've got stories from philosophy blogs, academic articles, even a tweet from a theologian, the works.
Wow. Quite a range.
Oh, yeah. And the question that's tying it all together
Okay.
is this. What does it mean to actually live a philosophical life in today's world?
Yeah, a big question for sure.
It is. So let's start with a story from The Guardian. It's about climate activists appealing their sentences.
Oh, interesting.
16 of them got some pretty lengthy sentences for staging these disruptive protests, things like blocking traffic and whatnot.
I see.
But their lawyers are saying the judges didn't really take their motives into account.
Okay, so what are they arguing?
They're bringing up some pretty heavy hitters in the philosophy world.
Like who?
Thoreau and Arendt and their ideas about civil disobedience.
Right. So the idea that sometimes breaking the law can be justified if you're fighting for something you believe is a higher moral principle.
Exactly. And in this case, it's the urgency of climate action.
Makes you wonder, if you're in that courtroom, would you feel justified breaking the law for a cause you believe in, even if it meant serious consequences?
Right. It's a tough question.
It really is. I mean,
Yeah.
Thoreau, way back when, argued that individuals have a moral obligation to resist laws they see as unjust.
And Archie was writing after seeing totalitarian regimes firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
So for her, it was all about the importance of individual action in challenging those oppressive systems. And here we are in 2025, seeing their ideas being used in a legal battle over climate change.
Wow, it's really a direct line from those philosophy books right to the courtroom.
It kind of is. It's pretty fascinating.
What's striking is how this case highlights that tension between individual conscience and the demands of the state.
Right. Where do our loyalties lie? How far are we willing to go for our principles?
It's heavy stuff.
Definitely heavy stuff, but it shows these seemingly abstract philosophical ideas actually have very real consequences.
Absolutely. Philosophy isn't just something we think about. It's a way we engage with the world,
Yeah.
And make difficult choices when we face these complex issues.
So true. So speaking of engaging with the world, let's move from the courtroom to something a little more athletic, shall we say.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
This article in Philosophy for Our Times caught my eye.
Really?
It's about Sabrina B. Little, a philosopher who's also a champion marathon runner.
Oh, wow. A philosopher and a runner.
You got it.
Okay, so what's the article about?
Well, she came up with this concept called the examined run.
The examined run.
Yeah, it's all about how applying philosophical principles to running
Okay.
can actually make you a better runner and a better thinker.
I like that. So it's not just about, clocking miles. It's about using that time to think about your thoughts, your emotions, motivations, all of it. It reminds me of those ancient philosophies where physical and mental discipline were really intertwined, like one supported the other.
Told you, like Plato, right?
Exactly.
Right.
He believed that training your body could actually make your mind stronger and vice versa.
Right.
So Sabrina Little's concept, it's like a modern take on this ancient wisdom.
That's fascinating. Could reflecting on your run actually help you become a better thinker?
Or could diving into philosophy improve your running? Who knows?
It's a really cool connection, for sure.
It is. It suggests that our physical and mental selves are more connected than we often think.
Definitely. I love that idea.
So maybe pushing ourselves physically can lead to new insights, new perspectives, and deep thought could inform how we approach those physical challenges.
Adds a whole new dimension to mind over matter, doesn't it?
For sure.
Okay, so we've got philosophy influencing legal strategies.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing how it can change our approach to running.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about something else.
Okay.
Education, but not the typical classroom.
Intrigued. What is it?
An escape room.
An escape room.
Yep, based on Ursula K. Le Guin's short story, The Ones Who Walk Away from Omeless.
Oh, I know that story.
Right, it's about this perfect utopian society, right?
Yeah, but there's a catch.
Huge catch. Yeah. Their happiness depends on the suffering of one child locked away in misery.
Right, a powerful ethical dilemma.
And that's exactly what this escape room forces you to confront.
So the participants have to choose, do they stay in Omeless and enjoy its benefits knowing the cost?
Or do they walk away?
Heavy stuff. It makes you really think about your own values.
It does. It asks, what price are you willing to pay for the well-being of others?
There's no easy answer, is there?
Not at all. But that's kind of the point, right?
It's about confronting those uncomfortable truths about ourselves, about humanity and what it means to be happy.
It's brilliant how they turned a thought experiment into this immersive experience.
Right. You're not just reading about the dilemma, you're living it.
You're feeling the weight of that decision firsthand.
It's powerful stuff, for sure.
It makes me think about how we often try to keep those ethical dilemmas at arm's length.
Yeah, we relegate them to the realm of thought.
But this escape room forces you to step into that space and really feel the consequences of your choices.
That's philosophy in action, isn't it?
It really is. It shows that it's not just an academic pursuit.
Right.
It has real-world implications for how we live, the choices we make, even the kind of society we build.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, so now we're moving from a society built on a dark secret to something else that's kind of mind-bending.
What's that?
The idea of bringing celebrities back from the dead.
What?
Not literally, of course,
Okay, good.
but digitally, as virtual persons.
Wow. Okay.
There's a blog post from a philosopher's blog that dives into the ethics of it all.
I bet there are a lot of ethical questions there.
Oh, tons. Ownership, consent, exploitation, the whole works.
Yeah, it really makes you think about what it means to be human in a digital world.
Right, where our digital selves can have just as much impact as our physical bodies.
Exactly. And what happens when our favorite celebrity never really dies? Is it a good thing or is it a little creepy?
It really makes you think.
It does. It's a whole new frontier, and we need to figure out the ethics of it all before it's too late.
I agree. We need to be asking those tough questions now, before the technology gets too far ahead of us.
Absolutely. We can't just sit back and let things happen. We need to be actively shaping this digital future.
Well said. And philosophy gives us the tools to do just that.
It helps us make sense of it all.
Now, speaking of making sense of things, let's switch gears to something that's causing a bit of a stir online.
Okay, what is it?
Elon Musk and an alleged Sieg Heil gesture he made.
Oh, wow, that's controversial.
It is. There's a blog post on Gymnasium Philosophy Refreshed that compares Musk to Hugo Boss, the fashion designer.
Hugo Boss.
Yeah, he actually made uniforms for the Nazi regime.
Oh, right, I'd forgotten about that.
So the author is suggesting that Musk's actions, whether intentional or not, are normalizing some pretty dangerous ideologies.
That's a bold claim.
It is, but it raises important questions about the responsibility of public figures, especially in the age of social media.
So how do we separate intent from perception in a world where everything moves so fast?
Exactly. It's a tough one. And philosophy can help us sort through it all.
It encourages us to think critically, to analyze the context and not jump to conclusions.
So true.
Yeah.
It's about being thoughtful and responsible with our words and actions,
Yes.
especially when we have a platform.
Well said. It's a reminder that philosophy isn't just about abstract ideas. It's about navigating the very real complexities of the world we live in, especially online.
So we've seen how philosophy is showing up in legal battles, personal growth, the digital world, even in controversial online incidents.
It's everywhere, isn't it?
It really is. And it's all connected to this question of what it means to live a philosophical life today.
And I think we're just scratching the surface.
Absolutely. But before we dive deeper, let's pause for a moment and take stock. What's resonated with you so far? What's got you thinking? It's really fascinating to think about how much our world is changing and how technology is blurring the lines between what's real and what's digital.
Right. And that blog post about reanimating celebrities as virtual persons, that really got me thinking about it.
It's like we're extending ourselves beyond our physical bodies, creating these digital versions of ourselves that exist in online spaces.
And those digital versions, they're becoming more and more real, right?
It's true. We create avatars, we form relationships online, build communities in virtual worlds.
So where does that leave us with the whole idea of personhood? What does it even mean to be human in a digital age?
It's a huge question, and I don't think anyone has the answer yet.
I agree. It's uncharted territory.
What happens when our digital identities become as real as our physical selves? Do those digital versions have rights? It's mind-blowing.
It really is, and it's happening now, not in some distant future.
Imagine a future where your online persona, your digital footprint, it carries as much weight as your physical presence.
It's exciting and a little scary at the same time, right?
Totally. It challenges everything we thought we knew about identity.
It does, and it's a challenge we need to face head on.
We need to figure out the ethical implications, the impact on our relationships, and what it means for our sense of self.
We can't afford to just wait and see what happens.
Right, we need to be proactive, not reactive.
Anticipate the challenges and the opportunities that come with these advancements.
And acknowledge that this is happening now.
It is. It's not science fiction anymore. It's reality.
So we need to engage thoughtfully, critically, ask those tough questions.
We need to figure out what kind of digital future we want to create.
And that's where philosophy can help us.
Absolutely. It gives us the tools to analyze, reflect, and make informed decisions about this digital world we're building.
It helps us understand ourselves and the world around us, even as that world becomes increasingly digital.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, so we've talked about philosophy and legal battles and personal growth and the digital landscape, but let's zoom out for a minute. What about the big picture, the philosophical foundations of our society as a whole?
That's a big one.
It's something philosophers have been wrestling with for centuries.
Right. What are the core values that should guide us? What's the role of government? What do we owe each other?
There are no easy answers.
No, but that doesn't mean we should stop asking the questions.
It means we need to engage with them even more now.
Exactly. We're living in a time of rapid change, both socially and technologically, and it's challenging our understanding of these fundamental concepts.
We see it every day in the news, these debates about social justice, economic inequality, climate change, the role of technology in our lives.
These aren't just political issues, they're philosophical issues at their core.
They force us to examine what we believe in, what kind of world we want to live in.
Exactly.
So where do we even begin?
Well, I think looking to the past can give us some valuable insights. Yeah, philosophers have been exploring these ideas for centuries, Thinkers like Plato, Aristotle, Kant, Mill. They all grappled with many of the same questions we're facing today.
So you're saying we can learn from the great thinkers of the past?
Absolutely. Their wisdom can still guide us, even in the 21st century.
But aren't their ideas a bit outdated? I mean, the world has changed so much.
That's the beauty of philosophy. It's timeless.
Timeless.
Yeah, the questions it addresses, they're fundamental to human existence, regardless of the time period.
So even though technology has advanced and society has evolved, the basic questions about ourselves and our place in the world, those haven't changed.
Exactly. The nature of justice, the meaning of freedom, the search for a good life, these are enduring human concerns.
It's kind of comforting to know that we're not alone in these struggles.
Yeah.
We're part of this larger conversation that's been going on for millennia.
Exactly. And by participating in that conversation, we can learn from those who came before us.
We can use their wisdom to help us navigate the challenges of today and create a better future. Okay, so we've established that philosophy is relevant to our lives in countless ways, but how do we actually incorporate it into our daily routines?
Oh.
It can all seem a bit overwhelming.
It doesn't have to be complicated. Start by being curious. Ask questions.
Be more like Socrates, always questioning everything.
Exactly. Don't take things at face value. Challenge your assumptions. Consider different perspectives.
Talk to people. Have those deep conversations.
Right.
But doesn't that sound exhausting? I mean, do we really have time for all this philosophical reflection in our busy lives?
It doesn't have to be a huge time commitment. Start small, read an article, listen to a podcast.
Like this one.
Exactly. Or have a conversation with a friend about a philosophical question that's been on your mind.
And you know what? Those are great suggestions, and I think we've given our listeners a lot to think about already.
I hope so.
But before we move on, I want to mention one more tool that we came across.
Okay. What is it?
It's an interactive visualization of philosophers and their ideas.
Oh, wow. I've heard of that.
It's featured in daily news, and it basically maps out the history of philosophy in a really cool way.
I love that idea. It makes it so much more accessible.
It does. So imagine this. You have all these philosophers represented as nodes in a network.
Okay.
And the connections between them show how they agreed or disagreed with each other, creating this intricate web of philosophical thought.
So you can see how ideas have evolved over time and how different thinkers have influenced each other.
Exactly. It's like a family tree of philosophical
I
thought.
love that analogy.
You can filter it by era field of study-specific philosophers. It's amazing.
It's like having a map of philosophical thought right at your fingertips.
Right. And it shows you the big picture, how these ideas have developed over centuries.
It highlights the interconnectedness of it all.
It's not just a bunch of isolated theories, it's an ongoing conversation.
A conversation that's been going on for centuries across cultures.
And with this visualization, we can all participate in that conversation.
We can explore the connections, trace the influences, challenge the assumptions of those who came before us.
It's a reminder that philosophy is a living, breathing tradition.
It's not stuck in the past. It's constantly evolving, shaping our understanding of the world.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have from climate activists to escape rooms to digital celebrities.
It's amazing to see how philosophy is woven into so many different aspects of our lives.
It's true, and it's often there even when we don't realize it.
right? It's not just something you read about in books, it's happening all around us.
Yeah, it's about those fundamental questions we all grapple with, whether we're conscious of it or not.
Like, what makes a good life? What are our responsibilities to each other? What's the meaning of it all?
Those are questions everyone thinks about at some point.
Exactly. It's what makes philosophy so universal, so human.
And that's what we need to remember. Philosophy isn't just for academics, it's for everyone.
So how do we break down those barriers, make it more accessible, more relatable?
I think it's about focusing on the human element. Less about the abstract concepts and more about how these ideas play out in our lives.
Right? Using stories, examples, real-world situations to illustrate those complex ideas.
Exactly, making it something that people can connect with on a personal level.
And that's what we've tried to do today, right? Bring in those news stories showing how philosophy is relevant to current events.
It's all around us if we just open our eyes to it.
And once you start seeing the world through that philosophical lens, it can really change your perspective.
It can change how you think, how you act, how you interact with the world around you.
Speaking of perspectives, I want to circle back to that interactive visualization of philosophy we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example of how we can make philosophy more engaging.
It's so cool. It maps out the entire history of philosophical thought.
Imagine a giant network of interconnected ideas with each philosopher represented as a node.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
And the connections between those nodes, they show you how those philosophers agreed or disagreed, creating this intricate web of thought.
So you can trace the evolution of ideas over time, see how different thinkers influenced each other.
Exactly. It's like a family tree of philosophy.
It's brilliant, and you can filter it by era, by field of study, by specific philosophers.
You can really go down the rabbit hole.
It makes it so much easier to understand the big picture, how these ideas have developed over centuries.
And it shows you that it's not just a bunch of isolated theories, it's an ongoing conversation.
A conversation that's been happening for centuries across cultures and continents.
And with this visualization, we can all join that conversation.
We can explore those connections, see the influences, even challenge the assumptions of those who came before us.
It's a reminder that philosophy is a living, breathing tradition.
It's not stuck in the past. It's constantly evolving, always relevant to the world we live in.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I think it's that philosophy is not just an academic pursuit. It's a tool for life.
A tool for understanding ourselves, the world around us, for making sense of it all.
It's about asking questions, challenging assumptions, having those tough conversations.
It's about living a life of curiosity, reflection, and intellectual exploration.
And it all starts with that simple but powerful question: why?
Why, indeed. So keep asking those questions, keep exploring those ideas, and keep diving deep into the world of philosophy.
We'll be back next time with another deep dive, ready to unpack more stories and uncover the philosophical currents shaping our world. Until then, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.